You crack open a can of soda. The fizz hits your nose before it hits your tongue. You take a sip and for a second you don't think about it at all. It's just a sugar and bubbles and a taste you have known since you were a kid. You assume someone designed it that way, tested it, refined it, built it in a lab until it became the most recognized flavor on earth. But the real answer is far stranger. The formula behind the world's most famous soft drink wasn't built to be delicious. It was built by a pharmacist trying to treat his own addiction, using ingredients he believed at the time were medicine. His name was John Stith Pemberton. He was a licensed pharmacist by 19, and by his early 30s, he was a Confederate cavalry officer in the American Civil War. In April 1865, during the Battle of Columbus, Georgia, Pemberton took a saber wound to the chest. Doctors treated the pain the way most doctors did in that era, with morphine. It worked. That was the problem. Morphine addiction among wounded veterans was widespread after the war, and Pemberton, despite his training as a chemist, became one of them. He spent years afterwards trying to formulate his own way out of it. He wasn't working in isolation. In France, a chemist named Angelo Mariani had already built a successful product on a similar idea, a Bordeaux wine infused with coca leaf extract, marketed as a tonic. It was called Vin Mariani, and it had a wide following among European elites. Pemberton studied it and built his own version in Atlanta. He called it Pemberton's French wine, coca, wine mixed with coca leaf extract and a few other stimulant ingredients, including cola nut. He marketed it toward veterans, toward people suffering what he called nervous exhaustion, and toward what his own advertising described as ladies whose sedentary lifestyle left them fatigued. It sold reasonably well around Atlanta. It did not make him rich, and for a while that might have been the end of the story. One more regional patent medicine in a market full of them. Then in 1886, Atlanta passed a local prohibition ordinance. Alcohol became illegal within city limits. Pemberton's wine-based tonic was now unsellable there, so he adjusted the formula. He removed the wine and replaced it with sugar syrup. He kept the coca leaf extract. He kept the cola nut for its caffeine. What came out of that reformulation was a new, non-alcoholic drink. His bookkeeper Frank Robinson named it, liking the sound of the two hard C's together, Coca-Cola. Robinson also wrote the name in the following script that the company still uses as its logo today. Was this the birth of a global brand? Not really. Not yet. Early sales were modest. Pemberton didn't even fully commit to it. When Atlanta repealed its prohibition law the following year, in 1887, he shifted his attention back to his original wine-based tonic, the one he actually believed in. Coca-Cola, in other words, started as his backup plan, not his big idea. It was marketed as medicine, sold at pharmacy soda fountains, mixed with carbonated water. The early advertising called it a brain tonic and intellectual beverage, claiming it could relieve headaches, fatigue, and nervous conditions. That's not unusual framing for the time. Most consumer products in the 1880s that contained stimulants were sold as remedies, not treats. By this point, Pemberton's health and finances were both declining, still addicted, still short on money. He began selling off pieces of his rights to the formula, not once to one buyer, but in overlapping pieces to multiple people. A businessman named James Mayfield believed he'd bought a controlling stake. Two other people, Margaret Dozier and Woolfolk Walker, had also bought in earlier, and Pemberton sold rights again, separately to an Atlanta businessman named Asa Candler. The result was a tangle of competing claims over who actually owned Coca-Cola. Pemberton died in 1888, still addicted to morphine, without ever seeing what the drink would become. It took Candler 3 more years to untangle the ownership. He bought out the other claimants piece by piece, and by 1891, he held full rights to the formula, the name, and the equipment for a combined total of about $2,300 across all the transactions. That's the number, not a metaphor. $2,300. Candler wasn't a chemist. He was a marketer. He standardized the syrup recipe, built a network of independent bottlers to distribute it beyond Atlanta, and spent heavily on advertising, printing the Coca-Cola name on calendars, clocks, trays, and fans. In 1892, he formally incorporated the Coca-Cola Company. Syrup sales, which had been around 9,000 gallons in 1891, climbed to roughly 76,000 gallons by 1895. The drink did contain a small amount of cocaine from the coca leaf extract in its earliest years. That's a documented fact, not a rumor. The company began phasing it out around 1903, ahead of new federal drug regulation, switching to a decocainized coca leaf extract while keeping the caffeine from cola nuts. Trace amounts of the substance lingered in the manufacturing process for a couple more decades before being fully eliminated. So the man who invented the formula died broke and addicted, having sold his rights for a few $1,000s combined. The man who bought those rights turned it into a business worth building a company around. That's a fairly ordinary story in business history, actually. An inventor undervalues what they have made. An operator recognizes the distribution opportunity and the operator captures most of the long-term value. It happens more often than the popular version of the origin story usually admits.